Hey everyone, welcome to another fantastic edition. I'm projecting, I'm time
You're really
traveling.
excited about this today, Randy, aren't you? I can tell.
I am. See what happens when you go from 7 o'clock or 6:30 in the morning until 9 a.m. Woohoo!
Just a happier Randy.
Everyone, I see heads bouncing at the table.
I don't know. I was still here at 7 a.m.
Right. And Ken
Oh
is just
my goodness.
like,
He is an overachiever.
Ken is sitting with his arms crossed and just smiling at me like the cat that swallowed the canary across the table, as he always is, to my right, where he should be. And across the table, Dr. Melanie Bachman.
The right side of things.
Just Melanie.
Just Melanie.
I'm just Melanie.
Just Melanie.
Melanie. Oh.
Joining the Just Ken group.
Okay. Well, and then it's just Lucas
yeah.
and just Randy,
right.
I guess. That's how we're going to go from
Just
here.
us.
Just us.
So if you are new to the show, I would encourage you to go back and listen to all nearly 500 episodes because it's just gold.
Yeah.
Hashtag gold.
How many weeks did that take you of solid listening?
Oh, man. On an average of, I think when I looked at one of the aggregators that watch our show or kind of do the metrics, I think we average 42 minutes an episode over all of those. So if you did that times, and this is, I don't even know what episode this is. I didn't even look this morning to see which one it is. I think it's 457 or 458. Plus there are bonus episodes. So when you look at the show feed, it's nearing 500, getting there with the bonus ones included, which they,
Just safe to say it would take a fair amount of your time to listen through all
it
of
would.
them.
So maybe just go
We
back.
dare you to try. Tell us how long it takes you.
That's right.
Tell us how long it takes you to go through all of them.
Keep track if you would.
And you have to tell us whether you did it at time and a half or 2 times speed, or if you did it at the 1 time speed.
So today's what?
456.
456. Okay.
So if you do it 2 times speed, then you would be looking at maybe about 190-ish hours, maybe.
Something like that. Ooh,
Yeah.
mercy.
That would only take you about a week or 2. Yeah, we have some construction going on around here, don't we, Randy? Is that bothering you?
No. You just ruined it. I was
Sorry.
this morning live from the SS Whole Life. We are whale watching on the coast of California. I'm telling you, I don't know. So anyway, yeah.
We'll take out what I said earlier then so that they can just appreciate that.
There's gotta be construction that I don't know about here going on in the building. But hey, so anytime you hear that, it's
That
not
work on the 3rd floor that we've been talking about.
Is it? Mm-hmm. Oh, well, there you go. Yeah. So it's not someone's breakfast that didn't get digested properly. No. It's nothing like that. No. It's just construction.
Yep.
We'll go for that. All right. I wonder if that's a cheerful project upstairs.
I feel cheerful about it.
Do you?
I do.
I do.
I do.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to be grumpy or anything.
No?
No. I feel good about it. When I go up there, I'm going to look at it. I'm going to feel cheerful.
You will.
That was Ken bearing his soul to begin the message this week. I was like, man, oof. That's because we've all been there, and we're all going to be there again.
Oh, good. I'm glad glad there's other people joining me on this journey.
I will totally own that. It's like I did it, but I didn't do it with a happy heart.
I got some side eyes when I was I was like, wow.
Well, but I mean, there's just always. I
also got some really knowing looks as well.
Yeah, people's like, did you get the silent? Like,
I saw some couples nudging each other.
That was you a couple weeks ago, mister.
You're welcome for not calling you out, by the way.
That part, it just ends up being where, I mean, there's a lot of factors that can go into it, and anyone that's been married or in a long relationship for, any serious amount of time knows that people have different time schedules. People have different things that they value in time at a different place and a higher level of expediency. And my favorite one is just always, hey, you don't have to keep bothering the guy. He knows you want it done. And in 6 months when it's done, you're going to be happy that it was done.
Yeah, I don't wait around. I just do it.
Do you?
Yes, I do. Just get stuff done.
Just get it done.
Melanie has one of the most complete sets of tools I've ever seen anywhere.
Yeah, well.
I do. Yes.
That's the best part of doing it yourself is that
when we knew her in Nashville, she literally had an entire attic that she had transformed into a workshop. And
wow.
When I say, I'm not talking about some small space.
A couple hundred square feet?
It was I mean, it was a good sized attic. No, I did my
And
work
then
in
there
the
was
garage
as well.
mostly. Yeah,
Well, so she had two places. So it's
Well,
just
yeah. That's,
The garage is so transient, though. You never know. You can't count on that space.
oh,
Or
yes,
can you?
I can. I have
Just-
priorities, Randy. The car might have to sit outside, but I'm going to get stuff done.
Oh, in Florida, my car's already outside and there's no extra space. I got to move stuff out even at that to get in.
if you go over to Melanie's house right now, she is in the middle of this massive renovation project, and she and her dad, but I don't really want to, like, her dad is super helpful, but Melanie is like completely capable of doing all
yeah.
of that. And it's impressive, to be honest with you.
I haven't
She
been
o-
able to lift drywall by myself.
She's only made one mistake in the renovation that I can tell.
Yeah, what is it?
You removed a very important feature of your house that I don't know.
The 40-year-old bidet is what he's referring to.
Okay,
for
so you
some
made-
reason,
so you
I
made
did
two
not.
mistakes
So
then.
I did, oh, there's another one.
So I forgot about the bidet, but you are correct. That was a big mistake.
People are now starting to, in America, are starting to buy bidets and
Yeah.
she's tearing them out.
And
Yeah,
she's-
so buying a new one is one thing. Tearing out one that's been there for 40 years is something else.
Oh,
So much history.
Point taken.
There's a lot of history in there. I mean, a lot of DNA history.
What was my second mistake? Now I'm.
Oh,
I
the
must
driveway?
know.
The
No.
centerpiece?
I'm thinking the.
I thought maybe he really
Wow.
was. I know. I
the
wasn't saying that for me.
Well, that's yours apparently, but mine is the.
You missed my.
Mine is the little root beer bar that she had.
Oh,
And
I know,
when you
right?
first came
That
in,
was
there
nice.
was like a little. Yeah, I mean, it was such a cool.
I really wanted to serve coffee to like a
Yeah.
whole group of people right from that. All the glass.
We're
it
trying
was-
to like
Yeah.
build something like that here at the church for our coffee service. And
I know.
There's Melanie ripping it right out of her house as
Well,
if it's
we
not
called
important.
it the spirit of Elvis because when you flipped on the lights and all the mirrors, it was pretty.
That's
wow.
what was so amazing about
Well,
it. That's
right,
why it was
yeah.
phenomenal. All for a little bit more closet space.
Actually, it's a half bath, but that's a,
Okay. Oh, that's right. I
Oh,
forgot about
yeah,
that.
that's
You can
kind
put a
of-
bidet in there.
yes, I can.
so whole
I'll
life-
put a plaque with your name above it. Ken.
Please do. I would be so honored. You have no idea.
If you have
Ken
some,
Memorial Bidet.
if you have some projects that just aren't getting done, and
Call Melanie.
and him or her, whoever it is in your house that takes care of that, if they've just been, they haven't been unreasonable in their graciousness towards your time frame. Call Melanie. I bet you she could come over.
555-555-555.
And I
bet-
promise I will do it in all my spare time.
And I bet she could get it pulled together pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So there you go.
She only has got her job and then redoing her house.
Yeah,
And
no.
so
Those book
lot of
chapters.
free
she's looking for more things to do.
Oh, totally. Well, and with Melanie, I've heard generosity is an attitude that drives action.
There it
true.
is.
And so I think it's
Nice segue.
Isn't it nice to make other people be generous on your behalf? So
well,
Melanie would be happy to do whatever you need done.
I think that
And
when
if she
you
doesn't, she's not a very generous person.
No, but that's being generous. I think that's me being generous. Just saying, look, I've got this resource that I know is impeccable. The job's going to get done right. If you're a detail orientated person, I challenge that you're not as detail orientated as Melanie. And so I think that put that all together, and it's a recipe for success.
Exactly.
That's just me being generous this morning.
True.
Wow. Thanks, Randy.
Hey, nope.
Can't be denied.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I think as we continue on with our Unreasonable Church and cheerful generosity, and I like that because Ken was like, generosity, that's not good enough. It better be cheerful generosity. Let's double down on the generosity. But at the heart of it, every time someone talks about generosity, I always look for one word.
Tithe.
No.
No? Oh, okay. That's the word I always look for.
That comes within that message, because for me, it's really, really hard to be just not well. Sometimes it can be hard to be cheerful. I'll go there. Sometimes it is even more difficult to be gracious and to have all of your. Finally, I'm going to do this, right? I can be. What's the word I'm looking for? What cheerful? What?
Generosity.
Generosity. Thank you. It's even harder to be generous. But it comes from gratitude. If I have no gratitude for what I have, because I think you know, you can talk about the scarcity mindset that, ooh, if I let go a little bit, then I'm not going to have enough, or somebody else isn't going to have enough, but mainly it's me that's not going to have enough. And you start thinking in that, and it's like, ooh, I should probably hold on to that. And this could be, I mean, look all around. It's happening to a lot of people. I probably shouldn't, because this could happen to me. And pretty soon you start inventing things that could possibly happen. But when you're really grateful for things that you have, you're also more willing to say, man, I really do have pretty much more than I need. I could let this go. Or this person could use this. I could help with this, or I could donate to that. But it's also a word that the definition is the quality of being thankful. I don't know if that says anything. Readiness to show appreciation for and to return kindness. I kind of like that part better, where you are ready. You're going to show that appreciation. And I think that's where, like, you told the story, and I never caught this before, about feeding the 5,000. The 5,000 was only the men?
Yes.
Really?
Correct.
How do we know that? That's
because it actually says that in the gospel.
Does it say that the 5,000 was just men?
Just numbered 5,000 men.
Wow. So that is a ton. I mean, that's a great story anyway. But thinking of how much, and then Ken's listing off, like, you know, John's the little brother because he tattles
all the time. That guy, he's always like. I feel it so much when I read his gospel, whether, you know, talking about Peter not running as fast as him to the tomb, he's always putting out receipts on people, like putting them on blast.
It was Philip that came and said, hey, we've got these handful of loaves and fishes.
It's actually Nathaniel who said that.
Was it?
No, it's not Andrew. I'm sorry.
Okay, I wrote that one down wrong too. Boy, it was early this morning. And it was at 9 a.m.
Philip was the original reasonable one, though.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Philip was very reasonable at the beginning. He said Jesus sent him home so that they can get something to eat.
That's right. So, but then when you're just like, how do you, if you're going to suggest, hey, we've got this little bit, there's no way. How do you even suggest something so ridiculous when there is no way, no chance of this being a plausible solution? I mean,
was it passive aggressive?
Yes,
a little bit?
yes.
Maybe like, well, we've got this.
It was almost, I felt like it was the smug challenge, or maybe the passive aggressive is a better way of just like, well, you're asking for it. So here, we have food with air quotes, but what are we going to do? What are we going to do with it?
But I have to say, one of my favorite things about Andrew the disciple, and he may be one of my favorite disciples, or maybe my favorite disciple, because whenever you find Andrew, he's always bringing somebody to Jesus. That's like anywhere you find him in the Gospels, he's always, they mention him, and it's in the context of bringing somebody to Jesus, whether it's at the very beginning when, I can't remember, is it he brings Philip, or I think Philip and maybe somebody else, and then Nathaniel, and then he finds the little boy with the fish and loaves, right? And just every time Andrew gets mentioned, he's always bringing somebody to Jesus. And I love that about Andrew. And I don't know, I guess because I'm such an Andrew fan, I just don't feel like he was being passive aggressive. I feel like he just was like, hey, I mean, you're Jesus. Let's see what we can, here's what I've got. But what can you do with it? I don't know, but here you go. This is the person that maybe. And by the way, can I also ask a question? Like, has anybody else ever thought, really? 5,000 men, not including women and children, and the only person who brought lunch with them was one little boy.
Yeah, they must have been really, really excited to leave home because they left home with no preparations.
Like, I bet their comms team was really good. This event was so well put together that they were like, food?
There's got to be some moms in the crowd with fish crackers, though.
Well, maybe they were planning on it being a whole lifestyle service. We will be done by 1. We can run to get food afterwards. And
or if Ken's preaching 1 hour and 5 minutes.
1 hour and 5 minutes.
Look at that. Yeah. Talk about passive aggressive. I looked at Melanie to the back and I knew I was in trouble.
But that is a good point, though. What is this? Just God setting things up where someone else is like, oh, I know Melanie's going to be there, and Melanie never leaves her house and her kids and her family without enough food. Like, she's the perfect potluck person who brings enough for herself and enough to feed like 2 other families. And everyone else was just, there was a Melanie for like every third person that was walking out the door going, Melanie's got lunch today. I think we're going to be fine. Let's just go. I don't want to miss it. I mean, is that plausible anymore?
My theory is that they had probably most of them eaten all their food. That they ate it during the day. They get down to the evening, and they genuinely weren't expecting to stay that long. But Jesus was such an incredible speaker that they were happy to do it. And they kind of get down to the end of the day, and they don't have anything left to eat. And apparently, this little boy had saved some food or something. And that's the best I've got.
Now, see, and in that case, I would have expected it to be a girl who was planning ahead going, I might get hungry later. But the boy's just like, there's bread and loaves and fish in this thing? It's going down.
Let me go ahead and speak to that for a second, because I can tell you that if it were me, that was one of the things I can tell you. I can go my wife jokes that my digestive system has more in common with a snake than a human being, because I will eat a really big meal and I can go for a long time. Wow. So when I think about that, for me, it would, when I was in that age range, nothing for me to get so busy and caught up in the day hanging out with friends that I completely forget to eat, because I'm just having a good time and just not worried about the eating part of things.
I mean, I'm more like that now, but when I was a kid, if there was food there, it was like...
Well, it's funny because you and I flip-flopped because when I was a kid, it was more that teenager even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's just
but now I need to eat.
I'll be fine.
Let's go.
Let's go. Let's get on with it already.
Let's break some bread.
But what a cool way, though, for us to think about what Jesus did, and also the things that we just talked about that, this could have been how it happened. This could have been how it happened. But in the moment, it seems like, where in the world are you going to feed possibly, like you said, with women and children, 15,000 people with, we got our basket, we're good.
I'd be surprised if it wasn't over 20. I really think 20 is kind of a minimum number on that.
Okay.
I really do. I think there were so many people there, because people in those days had more children on average than we do today. And so it would have been a family event. It would have been one of those things where everybody brought everybody that they could, grandma, grandpa, grandkids, cousins, everybody's showing up to this thing. So I really think that, and again, there's no way to know for sure, but I think that there were at least 20,000 people there.
It just made me wonder what things or what opportunities we might miss out on when we just don't leave it up to God enough to say, maybe this is possible. Because I think a lot of times we think, we like to dream big. I know as a staff, and when every once in a while you play the, what if money were no object? What if space were no object? What if all the planets aligned on the same day and we were all instantly wealthy? I mean, things like that where, what would you do? Of course, unlimited resources. But really what you're saying, and what we heard on Sabbath was that it's already unlimited if we leave it to God, and if it's in His purview as well. Yeah. But the trick is, how do you know when it's in His purview, and if that's going to trigger the success or the, invite everyone over, we've got plenty of food type situations?
For me, it's come down to, I don't know how it works for you, but there's many times where I feel like a real burden for something. I'm like, this really needs to happen. This needs to be done. I need to do this. I need to give to that. And I feel like when God puts that kind of burden on my heart, that's the time where I need to respond. And there are a lot of other things there are a lot of other really, really good things out there that I don't feel a burden for. I had people tell me I should feel a burden for it, but I don't feel particularly called to donate to it, give my time to it, whatever. And so for me, one of the little things in life that I'm trying to work on personally is that when I start feeling a burden for something, how can I give to it? And how can I do more than just give the minimum? How can I really truly give, and give cheerfully and generously? And how much can I give and still be cheerful? And that's not easy. I really think that generosity, I think some people are more naturally gifted with generosity than others. And I also believe that generosity is like any other skill. The more you do it, the better you get at it.
Oh,
and so the more that you start practicing this idea of cheerful generosity, the more generous you become, and the more that you start seeing God work things out for you and for the different things that you're trying to support.
Well, I like the fact that also within the message you said basically speaking for yourself, but I think you knew that enough of us would feel the same way, that my generosity sometimes takes me to the place where I don't suffer.
Yeah.
And I think all of us understand that and have found ourselves looking back a little bit and saying, man, should have done more for that. That turned out to be like really, really impactful. I wish I would have donated more time because I didn't have to do that thing in the afternoon, or I would have just said, you know what, this month we'll crimp and just scrimp and put it all together and tighten the belt, and we'll make sure we, maybe support this more generously. And I balance that, and I feel that also when I'm generous, I feel really good about myself, as I think you should. You should feel really good that you made like good decisions and you followed whatever the Holy Spirit put in front of you. But also the idea that, hi, I'm Randy. I'm pretty generous. How you doing? You doing good too? You been generous lately? Even if it's just inside in your head. And that's the part where it makes me a little nervous sometimes when, if you're on a good generosity kind of a roll, some things have, that you've maybe prayed about and you've involved yourself with, you're like, yeah, I'm a really good person for being so generous. And then it's super easy to just let that be, I wonder how generous Lucas is, or somebody else. And it's not a reason not to be generous, but it's also, for me, and maybe that's just a cause for concern, to not let that go to your head or to be something that you end up. I mean, can you give for the wrong reason? Because I was cheerful, but was I cheerfully in love with myself for doing something good?
Well, here's a good test. If you can do it without telling anybody.
There you go.
That's good.
That's my favorite kind, though, because honestly, if it's secret, it's way more fun, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, can we just agree that if you're going to err on one side of this or the other, maybe being generous is the better end of things to,
Either way.
If you're going to, maybe better than being Scrooge, right? It's like,
well, I do like being Scrooge.
I'm not saying that you should be proud of yourself and patting yourself on the back and flaunting your generosity, but I'll take that over Scrooge.
Yeah, I guess that's probably true.
Humility is a different sermon, Randy.
Yes.
That one goes for another time. The other thing that, when just kind of going back to gratitude for a minute, there's 4 practices, the 4 A's of gratitude. The first one is notice, pay attention to the good things in your life, acknowledge and recognize and be aware of the good things that happen to you, appreciate, be thankful for what you have, and act. Put your gratitude into action by prioritizing relationships and being kind to others. And and this all came from a prayer room that Heather and I did probably 15 years ago, where it really, really the idea of being grateful in everything, not just in the good things that happen, but recognizing that there are things that we're not really crazy about that happen to us that cause us to be grateful. And I wonder how much more maybe that impact is when something negative happens to us. And as we get through it, we realize really how blessed we are for not only making it through that, or maybe it shines light on how much we do have that we just weren't thinking of, or how close. Well, that was really scary, and how much more that might generate us, or just push us to be more generous, and all the different things that being grateful and generous come to. But the other part is, how much do we put on ourselves? Ken, you said, I don't believe people won't be in heaven because I failed to do my job. I don't think God will punish you because I'm not a great person. And I don't know. I know you've said at least the first part before. I recognize that as a Kenism that I really do like. But I don't think God will punish you because I'm not a great person. I chuckled, but then... And I'm still chuckling, obviously. But after that, what you said, you went on to say something later about you don't get the blessing of knowing that you were a part of it. And maybe that's the part that, as I've been thinking about this whole thing, is maybe that good feeling that we get when we're generous, that good feeling we get when we help. Maybe we don't really understand the impact that it has on the other person or the other group or the other whatever entity or thing is receiving our generosity. Because sometimes I feel like people don't, when someone does something nice for you and you try to explain to them and they're like, oh, yeah, no, I get it. You're like, no, I don't think you really get like how much or how amazing what it was that you did for me or my family or whatever. I don't think you really do. So maybe we're missing that part a little bit of how do I find where I should be generous outside of people that I see every day. Try to be generous with your time. Try to be generous with your listening and your being present. I think that's maybe that's one, if we all did a little bit more, we would see maybe huge and larger dividends than we could imagine. What are some of the smaller things that maybe we don't think about that we could be this same generous that Ken was talking about in the generosity that we saw Jesus in feeding the however many thousands there were, because that seems like a big thing. But how many small things can we do that we just don't realize?
I think if you're equating, it's interesting because I guess sometimes we measure generosity by what people do or what they give. And I think I don't want to put words in Ken's mouth, but I think what Ken was talking about was cultivating that attitude of generosity that's behind the action. So, sure, is giving something or listening to someone or spending the time or donating time or all of those things are good actions, and maybe those can jumpstart this cultivation of generosity. But I think the attitude of generosity that is behind it is more important than the action itself.
Yeah, I like that. We see the generosity here at Whole Life Church with a lot of things that happen. Some of them behind the scenes. Some of them are very obvious. There's certain people that you can count on to always give their time. Here's looking at you, Joe and Gabby, for helping us on a week's notice to film what should be a very funny video for our SNL. So for those of you who haven't signed up for Church Retreat, wholelife.church/Church Retreat, get signed up. And you can just always count on those people to do or to get involved if they can, or well, I can't, but I can maybe give ideas. So I think that culture, how do we keep breeding that culture? Is it just enough to say, thanks guys for, pitching in and helping? Is it something that you need to try to look to reciprocate in some kind of manner? How do we continue? Because I feel like if someone does something, I want to do something.
Isn't generosity a series of transactions where I do something for you, then you do something for me, then I do something for you? Because then is it generosity or is it bartering?
Yeah. And to Melanie's point, I think that is one of the things that a lot of people, and I will say just on a personal level, it's one of the things that I struggle with, is that I want to be generous and I will be generous, but then I kind of have an expectation that if I helped you move, out of your house into a new place, that when I'm moving out of my house, that you're going to be there to help me with it as well. And I do think that misses the spirit of generosity. Or you don't get thanked to the appropriate level that you feel like you should be thanked, then you're like, well, I'll never do that again because they weren't grateful. But I don't know whether that really qualifies as generosity then, because generosity, I think, has to come without expectation, with the idea of that it's the right thing to do, that we're doing it not for affirmation, not so somebody will do something equally nice for us or even less nice, but at least do something, but that we're doing it because it is the right thing to do. It is the right thing to do. One of the stories I didn't talk about is when Jesus is talking to a Pharisee named Simon, and he says, two people were forgiven large debts. One was forgiven this amount, which was $5,000, and the other one was forgiven $5 million. Which one was more grateful? And Simon said, well, the one that was forgiven $5 million. Well, they both should have been very grateful, right? They should. $5,000 is still a substantial amount of money to be forgiven, and $5 million is definitely a lot. And Simon said, well, the person who was forgiven $5 million, Jesus said, yeah, you're right. And he makes the point to Simon that basically we're only as grateful as we perceive that we've received generosity. And when we have a big act of generosity, it hits our gratitude. And so I think that a lot of our generosity comes down to gratitude, gratitude for any number of different things. And we see people outside of Christian circles who are very, very generous. And for them, there's lots of different reasons why they might be. But within Christian circles, I think that one of the reasons we should be generous is because we believe God is generous with us. And I think that there's a certain amount of, when we think that we're the ones doing it for ourselves, I'm wealthy because I have worked so hard and I educated myself and I put in 70, 80-hour weeks for years on end. So I've earned everything that I have. I think it can really lead to a less than generous spirit at times. I know plenty of people who've done that, by the way, are very generous people. But I think at times it can kind of lead to a little less generous because we look at other people and go, well, if they grind like I have, then they would have what I have. And so I'm not going to necessarily do that. I'm not going to be as helpful or generous. And so, but on the other hand, if you think, man, how fortunate am I that I was born in a place where I had the opportunity to get an education? Not everybody has that opportunity. And how fortunate am I that in spite of whatever adversity, that this person or that organization or this thing came along in my life that allowed me, I'll just use myself as an example for a second. When I was looking for a job, how fortunate was I that K57 decided to offer me $8 an hour job, which at the time didn't seem like much, but it gave me the opportunity to move from that within 8 months into television news, which gave me just this incredible experience in life that was just, unbelievable. And so if you think, well, no, I hustled really hard and that's why I got that job, versus, man, God was really watching out for me. God was really caring for me. I think it changes how you feel about being generous with other people. And for me, that's where I happen to find a lot of my motivation. I think about what God has done in my life and what God, all the wonderful things that God does. And my life isn't perfect, and there's been, rain clouds and things that haven't been great. But God's been so good to me. And that means that I want to think about being grateful and tangibly being generous with other people the way I perceive that I've had generosity done in my life. One of the stories I didn't include that always touched me was when I worked in New Zealand. We would almost every Sabbath we would go downtown. One of my church youth leaders worked at a bakery, and he would get all the leftover bread that they weren't selling and he would take that, and then some church members would make these huge pots of soup, and we'd go down to the town square, where a bunch of the unsheltered folks were in vicinity, and hand out sandwiches and soup to the people there. And what really stuck out in my mind was not what we were doing, but how many of those unsheltered people. I saw one person holding on to the sandwich that they'd received in the bowl, and I was like, "Hey, you're going to eat?" And they're like, "Oh no, I'm saving it for person X who wasn't here."
Yeah.
And I said, well, but what are you going to eat? And they're like, "Well, no, but this is my friend. I want to." And that happened so many times. And these are people. This was a meal. This was important to them, and yet they would save and make sure that their friends who weren't there had something to eat afterwards. And for me, that was very inspiring to think, okay, I'm giving out of a lot that I have. I'm not going to go hungry at the end of this, but these people potentially will, because they hold on to the food to make sure that their friends get something to eat, even if it means they didn't. And it was, to me, it was a pretty remarkable thing.
It was funny that you mentioned donating food this was probably 10, 12 years ago, when we were at Forest Lake Church doing Buddy Break. I went to the Starbucks across the street and said, I'd really like to caffeinate everyone on my team, because it's a slow day, and we only do this once a month. And I mentioned that we're working with Panera, kind of same thing, and they're like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." So she went behind the counter and grabbed this big 5-gallon to-go thing with spouts, cups, like the whole works, cake pops. I left and went through the drive-through because I was like, okay, now I'm going to get something. I'm going to get something that Randy wants to drink right now for a moment. So it totally, at first it felt a little bit selfish. And I got to the window, and it was the manager was at the drive-through window, and she's like, "You're back." And she's like, "Well, you don't have to, here's your drink. You don't have to pay. The person in front of you paid." And I was like, "Oh, okay, well, cool." I said, "Well, now I really feel guilty, because I'm like, I got coffee, which I will be drinking later, but I really just wanted something that I wanted specifically for myself." And so I was like, "Well, I'll pay for the person behind me." So the whole day goes by. We go back before they close, and I bring back what's left of the coffee and the thing. And she's like, super cool. She's like, "The first person that bought saw me give you the thing and asked what I like. How much does it cost to get one?" And she's like, "Oh, it's one of our, donation programs for," and she was explaining to this gentleman about Buddy Break and kids with special needs. And he's like, "Whoa." He's like, "Can I pay for it?" And she's like, "Well, you don't have to. It's already paid for." And he's like, No. I'm going to pay for that, and I'm going to pay for the next 10 people in drive-through. So I was like the 10th person after in drive-through. And when I went to drop it off, and
that's kind of a cool story of benefiting from.
Totally. Yeah. And at the end, when I dropped the big container off, they were just about getting ready to close up. They had to come. Well, they were closing up. They had to come and let me in to get the tub back. And she's like, "You're not going to believe it." She's like, 65 people paid it forward after the first 10 for a total of 75. She's like, "We've never had more than like 20 ever." It goes for a while until it gets to that person who's like, I scraped the floor for change for this cup of coffee. I can't do it. And she's like, 75 people. So I'm like, what a cool, your story just reminded me of that. And you're right. Seeing somebody else being generous is totally a catalyst that you have really no idea sometimes how many people you might be affecting.
The other cool thing that I wasn't able to find the research on it, but somebody came up and shared this with me, is that the greatest benefit actually goes to the person being generous when it comes to the
okay.
They've done studies apparently on the brain, and the person who receives something gets psychological benefit from it, but the person with the highest psychological benefit is actually the giver. So I guess Jesus, it is more blessed to give than receive. Yeah. Not only was a beautiful spiritual thought, but actually is a physiological fact as well, that you really do get a bigger blessing out of giving in mental well-being and that sort of thing than even the person that you're blessing or being generous to.
Can you be an ungenerous receiver?
Yes.
Because I think sometimes it's really hard to accept someone's generosity.
Oh.
And you try to push the generosity back because you don't want to receive it, and you rob someone of the opportunity to be generous.
I think that's one of the things I've struggled with a little bit in life is that I think there's probably more than a few of us that grew up being lectured about never taking a handout and take care of yourself and, somebody else needs it worse than you. And I think one of the things I've had to try to learn as a pastor is there's so many times where people do such nice things for us, and my reaction is, oh, no, don't do that. There's other people here that could really use that more. And after kind of having a couple people actually pull me aside and said, look, I know there's other people, and we'll take care of that, but this is meaningful for us to do this for you. Mm. It's been something I've tried to work on, is being a more generous receiver of kindness. And there's so many ways to be generous, though, Melanie. I'm glad you brought that up, because you can be generous with your praise. You can be generous with your time. There were so many stories I wanted to tell this time around, and I obviously went over, as Melanie will tell you. But there was a family that I've talked about, or a retired couple that poured into my life in high school, and I was going to talk about them a little bit. I was thinking about one of the things I was going to say is that I don't know if they did anything for me, but what I really remember is the time that they spent with me and how much it meant to me that they had me over to their apartment. They had me hang out with them. They did so many things, like their time. And then I realized that one of the first things they actually did do for me was they paid for me to go on the first mission trip I ever went on. But that was, and I hope it's not a lack of gratitude, but that really wasn't what I remember about them. What I really remember about them was the time they spent with me, and the way they invested themselves, and they loved me, and they cared about me as a person. And, Glenn and Nancy Dixon are saints. They are amazing people. And I'll never, for me, the mission trip was a big life changer in my life. Doing that was a big thing for me. And more memorable was the time that they really invested in me. And so there's so many different ways to be generous, with like all these different things that we can do.
The other thing that a wise woman once told me was and really beat it into my head, because I was a horrible receiver, was, why are you robbing me of any joy, any speck of joy possible for something that I want to do for you? You didn't ask me. I'm offering. I would love for you to take it, but I would also like you to just take it and smile, and a simple thank you is enough. You don't have to do anything back. You don't have to overdo it. Just say thank you and smile.
Have you ever been really, really moved by someone's musical performance and gone up to them and said, "Wow, that really touched me"?
Yeah.
And they say, "Oh, no, that's all God. It's all God. Just praise God." And I have thought before, you know what? I guess I could have bypassed you altogether and just said thanks to God, because you're not receiving what I'm trying to say to you.
Yeah.
And I think that the opposite of that, though, is if someone comes up to you and says, "Wow, I was not pleased with that sermon that you gave," or "I did not appreciate what you said about
all
this."
All the glory to God.
That was all God. We tend to accept the criticism, but then we deflect any praise.
All the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't.
That's interesting you said, because that's definitely something. I remember going up to somebody who really touched me with a sermon, and they said something similar to what you said. And I was in that moment. It's like, well, no, but I know God used you. I'm not stupid. I get that. But I just want to thank you for letting God use you. Not everybody does that. And it really touched me the way you said that. And it just felt almost dismissive in a way of how I was feeling. And so it's one of the things that I've had to work on too, because there's also that awkwardness when as a speaker, or when somebody comes up to you and says that they really appreciate it or it really meant something to you, where you do want to give God the glory. You do want to say, you know what, I know who I am, and if you are blessed, then praise God for that, because that's incredible. And yet at the same time, I've always remembered that feeling of being just kind of feeling deflated afterwards. Like, well, I just wanted to kind of connect with you there for a minute and say what this meant. And so, yeah.
Before we get to questions with Lucas here, practicing gratitude has been medically proven to boost your self-esteem, feel more joy, feel less regret, feel less destructive emotions, make sense of your past, bring peace to the present, and create a vision for the future. So I was like, look, be on that gratitude game.
It's good for you.
And that is not going to hurt. And then Lucas, questions, Lucas. Thank you. How about that? Let's transition, shall we? Well, Randy remains tongue-tied.
All right, let's go. So, what do you do when you lost your generosity and all you have is duty? Can you reclaim a generous spirit?
When you've lost your generosity.
Yeah. I mean, I happen to think you can probably reclaim most things if you decide to put your mind to it and do that. And again, I think it would come back to that, reflecting on all the good things that are happening in your life. And but that can be hard. Sometimes there's these seasons of life where it doesn't feel like any good things are happening to you. And in those seasons, I try to go back as far as I can and think about the things that are not a part of that season, reflect on that, and look for God's generosity in my life where I can find it. Spend some time praying about it. What's worked for you, Melanie?
Well, what I'm curious about is what's happening behind that question. I think it might be a good idea to reflect on why you no longer feel generous.
Yep.
What happened? Is it burnout? Is it feeling unappreciated? Is it, what is it behind? Because I really feel like if it's the thing behind it, perhaps, that needs to be resolved before that generosity can begin to flower again.
Good point.
Yep.
Nice. So this one we talk a little bit, but I think it's worth it to go over again. How do we overcome a transactional dynamic in relating to God and humans? For example, when someone does something for me and I owe them something in return now, there is an unspoken expectation for the other party that this belief is accurate.
I would love to answer that question, but that's what I'm working with my counselor on right now. So once I get done with that, I will get back to you on what we've worked through together. Anybody else want to?
When Melanie talked about it before, that transactional part about it, where I'm expecting something, and Ken, you touched on it as well. We often feel like, thank you. It's the same thing. Thank you is not enough, or, oh, I can't accept it. There's all these different angles in the background. I think what you just said in the previous question is finding out the background behind those. Why do I feel like if I give something to Lucas, he needs to give me something in return? Because often I don't feel that way. But then there's other times where if you feel like, I have felt like, man, that was a big deal. And Ken, you made mention of the move. And just by the way, don't ever offer to move anybody. That's just a bad idea. It's no good for you. Just come and talk to Randy later when you see me, and I will tell you too many stories about moving. Don't get known as the moving people. That's all I'm saying. That's
wow.
No, don't do it.
Don't be generous in that area.
In that area.
No,
I have some stories for you that are quite funny. No, just that. But seriously, we feel like something can be big like that where, oh man, if I moved you and it was 95 degrees in the dead of summer in Florida, and I'm smart. I'm moving in September or December when it's going to be in the 70s, and you can't help a brother out, and you're stuck
Randy,
moving.
I distinctly remember handing out popsicles, so I don't know what you're complaining about.
He's still bitter. I want you to know that we talk about it nearly every time we get together.
Right? It's that one thing. I really think what you said, Melanie, is getting to what's behind. Why do I feel like Lucas owes me or Melanie owes me for anything?
Well, is that really generosity? I mean, at that point, if it's transactional in that way, is it generosity, or is it just, something else that is masquerading as generosity.
The other thing that I think I would say is that if you can name it, you can tame it. Yeah. And if you recognize that you are being transactional in your generosity, then that's something you can start working on, and you can start thinking about it. You can start asking yourself, how can I get away from that? Yeah. How can I move away from that? And I know that's one of the things that I've had to do, because I think for me, for a large part of my life, I didn't realize how transactional I was with the good things I was doing, the nice things, and the expectation I had that it would come back to me in some way. And so I think you have to be able to name it. I think you have to be able to say, hey, look, when I start feeling angry at somebody for not doing something I wanted them to, and I start remembering all the things I did for them, that's transactional. And just say, hey, that's not the kind of person that I want to be. I want to be a person that does things no strings attached, that has a cheerful, generous spirit. I don't. So I'm praying about it. I'm working on it. I'm taking little steps forward here and there. And that's just part of that journey.
Yeah. And I also have the feeling that it's like an exercise. Like the more you practice generosity, the more pleasant it gets, and then the expectation starts to go away a little bit.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yep.
All right. Is faith required for us to be able to be cheerfully generous?
No. There are plenty of people who would not call themselves people of faith who are cheerfully generous.
Yeah, as I mentioned in my sermon, one of the best talks on generosity I ever heard was from an atheist, and they were incredibly generous people, and with a person, what they did in their life and the difference they made. So you don't have to be a person of faith. I feel like that if you have faith, it should be a motivator. If your faith doesn't motivate you to be generous, I kind of question what kind of faith we have. So I don't think it's necessary, but I do think it should be a major motivator for a person.
Yeah.
The last one. I recently posted my support for the country of Ukraine on Facebook. A dear friend commented on my post stating they were standing for God. I have no doubt this was meant as a rebuke. How do we get to a place where Christians feel no need for any kind of generosity toward those who face injustice and marginalization? And how do those of us who believe standing for God is not a sedentary posture change their minds?
So I haven't had a whole lot of luck changing people's minds on social media. For those of you who may have had that kind of luck, do write in and let us know how you do it. It's one of the reasons why I'm not active on social media anymore. I just got incredibly tired of the lack of conversations that are meaningful, as opposed to just throwing pies at each other. Here's my facts. Here's your facts. Here's your lies. Here's my lies. Whatever which way you want to look at it. And of course, mine are facts and yours are made up. And so one of the things that I would say is, if you're going to post things on social media, particularly things that are of a political nature or opinion, there's almost certainly going to be somebody who is going to say something about it that is not positive. And that's kind of part of making that decision to do it. It's one of the things that I kind of have taken as a realization as a pastor who preaches every week, is that there are people that are absolutely going to disagree with me, in some cases very violently disagree with me, and they're going to let me know that I'm dumb and that I don't know what I'm talking about and all kinds of things. And it's just part of standing up and speaking what you believe to be truth in the hopes that it will resonate with somebody. And so with the post that you put up, maybe it resonated with some people. It obviously didn't resonate with that person. That's okay. that's their, or maybe it's not okay, but it doesn't change that it is what it is. And so I think we have to kind of be bold and speak what we believe to be the truth. And so, when you put that question out there, I feel for you, because so many times we try to stand up for what we believe is right, and we get shot at, and it hurts, particularly when it comes from a person that we respect or love or want to have love us or want to have respect us. So it's going to be hard. But as the Bible says, do not give up on doing good, for in due season you will reap a harvest of righteousness. And so if you know what the right thing is to do, keep doing it. Maybe that's something I need to think about on social media. I don't know. I just haven't found it to be the most effective outlet for what I'm trying to accomplish in life.
All right, next week is what? Are we done? No, one more. One more. This is the
enthusiastic inspiration.
These doubles are killing me.
Enthusiastic inspiration, and so come to Whole Life and get a little Jesus next week.
That's a lot more funny now.
There's a little bit more to that than just you have to come and find out what we meant by that. But.
Oh, please don't miss. That's all I'm saying. Please don't miss. You'll be sad when you look around your world and see, I missed it, and I could have been there. Ken invited me.
We have to think about something for the online people.
All right, I'm going to start thinking now then. This is too good to pass up. So next week, and then the following, we're what? We start the
following week.
Oh,
I am super excited because Jose Tony
JT.
Montenegro, or as I call him, JT, because we can't decide whether it's Jose or Tony.
Yeah.
So JT is going to be doing the sermon, and Melanie told me the concept. Is he going with the concept you told me about?
As far as I know, that's still where we're headed.
I am so excited. I am a little bit jealous that I am not going to be here. In fact, I will be in a place where I don't think that I can watch it live, but if I can, I'm going to try it. The concept is so cool. I was kind of jealous. I'd never thought about doing this. It's such a good concept. So I'm really excited about that. Week after that, our very own
Freud bras.
Freud.
Yeah.
And it's been a while since Freud's.
And I think people should vote on this. My vote is that Freud preaches in either Portuguese or French.
Wow.
Okay.
Because we have a new translation app that we could be putting, it translates in real time, and people could actually listen. All of our English-speaking people could be listening with their headphones.
Or reading it on their phones.
Or reading it on their phone. Or we could actually have it going on the screen itself, the big screen in the church. So
might be fun to
Let's
swap
make him
places
preach in
and
all
see
5 languages that he speaks. Then.
yeah, so he can do the sermon in 5 parts. So
okay, now instead of him saying, now turn in your Bibles to, okay, now go to your app and change a language to Portuguese.
I think that would be really amazing. So
all right, Discord, we're going to let you try to push Freud to helping him say yes to this idea. So we're going to put in the Discord a poll. So it's swipe up in the show notes. You'll find a link to the Discord. Please join. We post stuff there every week, just relating here to the podcast, things we're talking about.
Pictures of used gum.
Pictures of used gum. Cute puppies, though.
Yeah, that's
right.
true.
Cute puppies. You never know what's going to be there.
Yeah.
And take the poll and let's show it to Freud and see if he'd be willing to get on board.
And then after that, we are doing we have a Sabbath, and then there is our church retreat. And then there's another Sabbath, and then I think we jump into a series on the Book of Ruth. Ooh. And the reason I skipped the 2 Sabbaths on either side of retreat is because Melanie and I are still. I had an idea for it. I have another idea, so we're negotiating.
Wait for next week's poll where you can help decide which one to go with. You never know. So check back next week.
So I was thinking about just again, maybe we can just. So we were going to talk about mission and vision on either side of this, but I was thinking, Melanie, maybe what I should do is do a sermon called Charge, then we have Retreat, and then maybe a sermon called Surrender.
Oh,
I see what you did there.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, so negotiations.
We must hear more about this.
See, now, if you can see Melanie's face, you know why we're going to have negotiations on this.
It was
It was intrigue, Ken. That was the look on my face.
And by the way, it's not too far away from the look that she had when Stanley went to ask me the question during second service, and I just want to put it out there that I said, "Don't ask a question," because I looked in the back and I saw Melanie, like she was ready to, like, if looks kill, we would have both dropped dead on the spot. Oh, Stanley, you got me in trouble, buddy.
I am not sure how those text messages did not make it through.
She's going to have to start using the back screen. It is over.
Well, I did.
Stanley's like, I will not be denied.
Red flashlight that I can start flashing when things are getting really
use lasers
serious.
and start blinding us. Well.
Oh, man. Guys,
I apologize
You're
to
welcome,
everybody.
congregation.
I am sorry.
That's
I
it.
am fighting for you.
There you go. All that and more
Support
next week
Melanie.
on This Is Whole Life. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a great week.